Hello, my name is Nicholas Asphodel. I am a singer, songwriter, and multi-instrumentalist. So I'm here today to talk about my Cega 19-string lyre harp. So this video is not sponsored in any way, shape, or form. All opinions are my own. So as you can see, I play quite a few different instruments. And I wanted to just tell you a little bit about this instrument and my experiences with it. I've been working with it for quite a while, so you can think of it as a review with some experience under my belt. So, why did I want to talk about this? Well, first off, I think it is a beautiful instrument. It looks beautiful and it sounds beautiful. It's really easy to play. You don't really need lessons. You can just pick it up, tune it up, and get started. So I found this to be very inspirational. I have actually created 2 songs with this. My very first song that I released as an original, which is called Power and Fable, and also my most recent original song called Long Ago. So I will put a link to those music videos at the end of this video if you really want to hear how this sounds as best as I could record it at those particular times. I am always working on my recording and sound engineering skills. So there are many different types of lyre harps. You'll see them all over Amazon or Temu or other such websites. This particular one, I don't know what the actual shape is called, but I say it kind of looks like a kidney bean. You'll also see some that kind of have a pan shape, and you'll see some that are shaped more like a traditional lyre, like from Greek mythology. You'll even see some shaped like orchestral harps, like that triangular shape. So, a few things. This particular one is 19 strings. I have seen them from 16 to 24 strings. There are many other different types of harps on the marketplace. Some come as a kit that you assemble yourself, and some will have additional notes that you can hit with frets or levers. So you'll notice that this particular one is diatonic, not chromatic. What that means is the notes you can hit, C, B, A, G, F, E, D. You can only hit those notes. You cannot play sharps or flats. There is a particular type of lyre harp called a guitar harp, where it has some sort of fretting system where you are able to fret kind of like a guitar those additional sharps and flats. Or on a more traditional orchestral harp or smaller versions, there are levers where you can hit sharps or flats. Now, just because the particular strings are only tuned to specific notes does not mean that you are stuck with that. If you are an adventurous type, you can just tune the strings yourself, not following the directions to those sharps or flats that you need, to whatever key signature that you would need for any particular song. Then if you played a different song with a different key signature, you are going to have to change your tuning again, and we'll get into tuning in a little bit on this. Now, there are other things that you could do. If you are savvy with using a DAW or computer recording software, you could even manipulate the notes to those sharps or flats electronically after you play them, but that's a little bit more involved and does not really help you so much in the live setting. So, who is this for? I'd say that this is mainly for music makers, music students. It'd be good for maybe people who are into cosplay or Ren fairs, or if you have a D&D group or something similar and you're playing the bard, you just want a prop. So There's a really active community for these on YouTube that I've seen, also on Reddit. You are not going to really find a band looking for lyre harpists. Like, you can't really go to a music store and ask lessons for a lyre harp. I mean, you might find a music teacher who'd be willing to take you on, but it's typically not something that'd be advertised, and not something I don't think that you really need anyways. So, like I said, this would be great for music creators. I think it's really good in the studio setting. I would not say that this would be very good for a touring musician or anyone using this live so much, as how much I love this harp. Tuning is a little bit of an issue. You get it into tune using a little wrench to twist the tuning pegs tighter or looser, and it is extremely touchy. Then also, it's not going to hold its tune for very long. Now, I live in the Los Angeles area in California, and so there are some extremes to temperatures. I mean, I keep it here in my studio, and it's air conditioned, so temperature is really pretty stable, as well as humidity. So even with not so major fluctuations in humidity and temperature, this thing will hold tune for maybe a session before it starts to really go out of tune. Then one particular thing with this particular lyre harp is, I don't remember which one, I believe it's this one or maybe this one, the tuning peg slips. So when you tighten it, the tension of the string is going to pull it loose again. And so it's really finicky to keep that particular string in tune. Now, there are some things you can do to address that. If you are a string player, cello or violin, you might be familiar with what is called peg drops, or just your regular rosin. What you do is you take this tuning peg out, and on the threads you would put a few drops of the peg drops or rub a little bit of rosin onto those threads, and what that is going to do is it's going to make it sticky, so it's going to hold its tune a whole lot better. I have not bothered to try doing that just because I have a whole bunch of other instruments here that also require maintenance and my own personal life, and so I just haven't really gotten around to that. So, how do you hold this? As I mentioned, there are a lot of different shapes, and so there's no real official method, but this particular one is shaped like a kidney. How I believe it is designed to be used and what's comfortable for me is I take my left hand and I place it on the back arch here. I hold it across my body and I pluck with my right hand. Sometimes I'll also even pluck from the back some of the strings while simultaneously plucking from the front. So this is, sorry if you hear some scratching, I have a husky who is having gym time on the couch. She's having fun, so I don't want to yell at her for that. And this is the second time I've done this video. The first time the roofers and gardeners came, completely drowning out any sound I was making. So, anyways, a regular orchestral harp, you have your lower strings further away from you, such as this is in the position I hold it. Now, I am left-handed, but I'm plucking with my right hand. If your particular harp is uncomfortable like that, you can just go ahead and switch hands. No one's gonna yell at you. I won't tell. It'll be our secret. So, the only difference is this arch is a little bit smaller on this end, which is perfectly fine. You can still pluck from the back and pluck from the front. Some people like to support the bottom on their leg. And I have seen some people tie a rope or a strap around here and they wear it about their body. Now, the kidney-shaped lyre harps, I have seen them mirrored, where sometimes this longer opening is swapped and the strings are going to be on this side. So I suppose you could call this a right-handed version, being that it is most comfortable to be plucked with the right hand, but it really doesn't matter, whatever is comfortable for you. Okay, now looking at this lyre harp in detail, you'll see that it has 19 strings. It goes from the lowest F3 all the way up to C6, and the notes are engraved on the top. There is some nice decorative engraving on the side. There's some leaves, and the sound hole is the shape of a reindeer, which I think is a really nice touch. So, what does this come with? My lyre harp, it came with a tuning wrench, which this is a very useful tool. It fits nicely onto the tuning pegs, and you can just twist by giving the slightest little nudges to get it into tune, and I will demonstrate that later. It also came with a pick. I honestly don't remember if this is the same pick that it came with. I don't use the picks. I use picks for other instruments, so forgive me if I'm not showing the actual one that it came with. It did come with a case. It fits very nicely within the case, and it has one zippered pocket in front. The zippered pocket only goes down, it does not go up. So you could hold your tuning wrench, some picks if you want, some extra strings. Otherwise, it just has a carrying handle. It does not come with a strap. This is not very thick. It has just a little bit of padding, so this is perfectly fine for carrying it around town, but if you're doing any sort of serious touring or anything, doing this in the back of a van or a trailer, this is not going to protect your harp very much. So, one of the reasons why I wanted to review this harp is because however much I love this harp and the sound of it, it is a little bit imperfect. I'll show you in more detail, but if you look down here, these little rivets that hold the strings, some of them are cracked all the way through, just little metal rivets, and the string is starting to pull through the wooden body of the harp itself. So I do not believe I have been the first person to experience this issue. If you look on Reddit threads, other people have also had this issue. And if you look at newer incarnations of the Lyre Harp, it seems that they have addressed this problem by replacing the metal rivets with a solid, it looks like brass bar that holds the strings rather than just the little rivets. So when searching for ways to repair it, I did see that you can buy repair kits. This comes with 19 new strings, and it comes with brand new rivets. So I am going to replace the rivets, and I will show you that process, and I'm going to fill in the cracks with some super glue. I'm not a luthier, so there might be a lot better glues that would accomplish the job, but that's what I have, and we will give it a try. If in a little bit I find that those rivets fail again, I think I might buy a piece of scrap metal and craft my own little metal bar such as the newer incarnations that they sell now, and that should do the trick. So I'm not going to really play it until I've repaired it, as I don't want to damage and have the strings dig into the wood even more. So tune into the video and let's look at how easy repairing the Lyre Harp will be. Alright, let's see how easy this is to repair. Alright, well, I figured that you didn't have to watch this at full speed, but what I'm doing right here is I am cutting the strings and then pulling it back through. You can't really use the strings again because after you tighten them up, they get a kink in them and they're probably going to be stretched and a little bit bent. And I cut them because it was going to end up scratching the body of the Lyre Harp, and so I was trying to preserve the nice paint finish. And I do apologize about how the video is going to be kind of chopped up, as I am new to using HD recording and my camera overheated several times. I was trying to keep it plugged in rather than just using the battery. That way I didn't have to worry about the battery running out. But then of course keeping it plugged in, it ended up making my camera overheat anyways. But that's just me trying to figure out how to record better, and that is a work in progress. But yeah, it did not take me too long to take these off. I just needed a wire snipper, but you didn't even really need that. You can just unwind it with the tuning wrench and pull them back through. Alright, and after I got all the strings out, I used just a needle nose pliers to pull out those little brass rivets. And as I said, a few of them were cracked. And coming up here in just a second, I'm going to show you the most damaged rivet. It was cut basically all the way through, which is probably about ½ inch long. And it should not have cut through that, and it continued going through the wood. And here it is right now. And here's a little close-up of that, since you probably can't really see that. Yeah, those are just paper thin, and if that's not going to stop the wires from cutting through, then I don't think replacing the rivets is going to really make the harp not do that again. Alright, what I did right there is I super glued the cracks and the splits in the wood. Well, I'm dusting it off first a little bit because I haven't used it in a while. Here you can see the splits. I'm using a wet paper towel to add a little bit of moisture, and I'm hoping that the moisture pulling into the wood mixed with the glue will help pull the strip of glue more into the wood, more up into the crack, so that could dry and repair itself. Why, hello. Well, it's been about 4 days since we last filmed, but instant for you here. I wanted to leave a little bit of time for the super glue to dry to fill in those cracks, which it has. But after having it dry, I decided to change strategies here a little bit. Now, when I took out those old rivets, 10 of the 19 rivets failed, over half. And as I pointed out earlier, the strings started to cut through the body for 2 of the holes, and some of the other holes looked like maybe they were starting to be cut into as well. And when I ordered the new rivets, it did not indicate any sort of sizing. It just said rivets for Lyre Harp along with strings. So I figured we were good. But the new rivets are actually slightly larger in diameter than the old rivets. So I can't just slip them in. I would actually have to drill out the holes in order for those to fit. And that's a bit precarious. I could accidentally slip and kind of ruin the entire instrument. And I could do that, and I was about to do that, but then thinking again, 10 of the 19 failed, over half. And the new rivets, as well as the older rivets, are just paper thin brass. So, I mean, putting in new rivets, they're just gonna get cut through again, and then I'll have the same problem. So I decided to rethink, and as I mentioned previously, the newer Lyre harps actually have some sort of brass fitting over the holes. And it got me thinking, well, could I maybe just buy something like that for my Lyre harp? I couldn't really find anything. Maybe if I search harder, sure, but I figured, well, maybe I could try making something. And I'm not a luthier, and I'm not a metal worker or anything, but I did find some brass, and I decided that I am going to try to make my own little string holder myself. Looking on Amazon, there weren't that many choices. I'm sure that there's a lot better places than Amazon to get this sort of material, but I'm not a metal worker, so I don't have tons of ideas for sources or whatnot, and I wanted to get it fairly quickly. So upon searching, this is what I got. It's 4mm thick brass. It's just a bar. It's 8 inches by 1 inch, and that is pretty solid. So if the strings cut into this, it's going to take a whole lot more, and I wouldn't be as worried about it cutting into this as into the actual body of the harp. So again, like I said, I really don't have any metal working experience. I've done a little bit of do-it-yourself home repairs and little minor things, some minor car repairs, so I'm familiar with tools. But I figured that this is a little bit of a challenge, but we'll see how it goes. So this took a lot of planning. I didn't really film any of that because I wasn't really planning on doing that, and I wasn't quite sure what I was doing, so there's a whole bunch of mucking about with ideas. And so finally I created this paper template of what I'm going to cut on this bar. That was a little bit difficult, as looking at the shape, there's no flat edges. So in order to have precise measurements, I have nothing off the body to go off of. So what I did was I took some paper and a pencil. I just put paper on top of the holes, and I just sketched back and forth over the holes to get an outline of the holes. And then I use a flat piece of paper to measure the bottom of the holes to whatever the bottom of this bar would be, because there's no flat edge I could use on the actual Lyre harp. And so that's how I came up with this shape. It took a whole bunch of drawings and a bit to figure that out, but this is the exact length and size of the bar, and in black I've shaded where I will cut out. And because sometimes I like to be a little bit extra and have this big piece of brass, why not make it a bit ornate? So I found some cursive writing of my name, Nicholas Asphodel. I will try engraving onto the brass plate to make it a little bit more decorative. I would love to do a whole bunch of cool things with like scrolling. Like this had a lot of detailed scrolled etching into the sides of it. I thought about trying something like that, but this is the first time I'm doing any sort of project like it, so maybe the engraving might be a bit over my head, but we'll at least get the holes drilled and we'll take it from there. So I have this paper template, and I have to get it onto the brass. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this paper template out, and I'm going to put that in between some carbon paper and the brass. I'm going to retrace over my templates through the carbon paper onto the brass, and then it will etch onto the brass the exact template, so I know exactly where to cut. So I'm going to start off by just etching the 4 screw holes. This is kind of small, so I'm going to screw it to a larger piece of wood to hold it. That way I don't have to use clamps. And then after I get the screw holes, I'll etch the rest, and after it's screwed to a piece of wood, it will be held securely without my having to worry about clamps or trying to hold it tight enough with my fingers. This is just my idea of how to do it after thinking about it for a few days, and I'm sure that there are some professional crafters out there who are screaming right now about a lot better ways to do things. But this is just a guy doing his best to save this instrument from having it destroyed. I could have bought a new Lyre Harp, but again, the cost of buying a new one versus just the cost of buying this, which was about $12, which is nothing. I figured $12 is worth a shot. I just have some basic hand tools. I have a generic hand drill off of Amazon, which I'm going to use to drill all the holes. It is by no means a professional drill, and it would not last the rigors of an actual work site. I just do a few repairs here at home, so I think it should be good enough just for doing this. And then I also have an off-brand Dremel, which I'm going to be using to do the actual cutting and etching. Again, this is by no means professional grade, but as far as I can tell, it will do the job. So, I'm not going to do this project inside. Just going to throw metal shavings and dust all over the place. So I'm just going to get my template set up. I'm going to go out to the garage. I'll bring you with me when I'm all set up. And then you can watch me fumble trying to drill through brass for the first time. All right. Okay, so we're in the garage. We're all set up. Sorry, the garage is a bit of a work in progress. Could stand to be quite a bit neater, but it's a good space to work in. So before we get started, safety first. I have my hair tied back. I have on safety glasses. I will put on safety gloves and also a mask. I don't want to be inhaling any metal dust or shavings. I'm going to tape this down so it'll be secure while I drill the initial anchor holes. Alright, and of course, another safety feature that everyone should do is you should tuck your beard into your shirt, just like that. Alright, and yeah, it's not the most perfect workspace. My workbench is just some plywood that I put on 2 hardware 5-gallon buckets. That plywood is scrap left over from when I was trying to cut a shelf for in our house. I asked a hardware store if they could do some precise cuts on the board, and the guy working at the hardware store just took a hacksaw and cut it by hand. And so that was not ideal, but the shelf fits in our house and it does its job, I guess. So I'm taking the Dremel and I'm just making little marks for the first 4 screw holes. That way, when I press the drill down, the drill is not going to jump all over the place. It has a little bit of a divot to grab hold of. And now, after I have made those little divots, I am applying the carbon paper and I am retracing the template directly onto the brass plate. This is just standard carbon paper. I'm sure you can pick up at any crafting store, and it transfers very nicely onto the brass. It makes it very sharp
clear line. That way you will have your template directly on the brass piece. I was a little bit worried that it would not transfer, but that transferred quite nicely. All right, so I just showed it to you. Probably can't really see that, but now I am taking 4 screws and screwing it into the workbench itself, and I'm drilling through the workbench, and I didn't just tip it over and knock over all my tools. Never mind about that. I have not done too many big projects in my garage so far, so this is not the most perfect way to do things, but it ended up working. That is why you're seeing this video. Otherwise, I wouldn't ever release this. Alright, so with the hand drill, it's just standard drill bits, and it does go through the brass. Here, for the 19 different string holes, I'm making the little divots that the drill will be able to catch in for every one of those holes. That way, again, the drill does not jump all over the place because I do not have a drill press. I'm having to hold that drill with my hand. I think I put these videos in order. I didn't get the entire process on video as my camera kept on overheating, even though it wasn't very warm out that night. But like I said, I kept it plugged in, and with the particular camera I have, the Canon EOS R50, it's kind of a pretty small camera body, so I think it heats up pretty quickly. And here I am drilling the holes for each of the string holes, and I end up having to go through the holes a few different times. Uh, it doesn't go all the way through the first time. I'm just making a larger divot that further drillings will actually go through. And just blowing the brass shavings out of the way so I can see what I'm doing. This is the first time I've ever really drilled through metal. I didn't know how well it would work, but like I said, I'm just using standard drill bits. Nothing special, no special super high-end drill bits. And I start off with a smaller drill bit, gradually going to larger ones. And one of those holes, it didn't really want to go through very well, but I'm just giving it a bit of body weight, and it goes through. I did end up breaking one of the drill bits, which I think you'll see right here, or yeah, right there. So putting in a new drill bit, but I just pushed it out with a new drill bit, and I was able to go right through there. Now, before I drilled the holes, I think I actually cut off the extra longer bits of the brass with my Dremel. For whatever reason, I was having issues with my camera, like I said, and I didn't end up recording that part. But yeah, I just used a cutting disc on the Dremel to cut that through. And here I'm working on engraving my name. It's just a fine engraving point on the Dremel. I already traced my name on the cursive font with the carbon transfer paper from the templates, and I'm just trying to trace over that with the Dremel, adding pressure. I use a few different bits. I start off with a triangular bit, but then kept on going down to smaller and smaller bit to get deeper into the brass. So it would show up and not look like someone just scratched it with a nail. It turned out fairly well, I think. Not as nice as like an engraving on a trophy or something, but it's good enough for my purposes. All right, and the edges of the brass bar were a little bit sharp, so I wanted to sand those down a little bit, give it a little bit of a rounded edge, and finish it off a little bit. So I just used the sanding bit and flatten those down. and I didn't get the rest of the video. I was basically shaping it with a little bit of sandpaper, rubbing it on the floor, and giving a little bit of gloss with sandpaper. And the portion where I pulled all the strings through for the initial tightening, the video got corrupted, so I'm sorry I can't share that. But here I am showing you the tuning. These are brand new strings. You'll notice I'm moving that wrench quite a bit. Now, when you have older strings and they've settled a little bit, you are just going to nudge that wrench the tiniest little touch you could possibly do, as especially on the higher strings, it really does not take much at all to make a big difference to go an entire note. Just a tiniest little nudge. And so, since this is the first time that the strings are being tightened, I basically start with the low string, get it to general tuning, and go on to the next string. And I do this a few times because by the time I tune the first string to the time I tune the last string, the first string has already stretched out, going quite a bit flatter. Again, being that's a new string, it just needs to stretch out to find its tension, and so yeah, it's going to take a few times. And even when you have older strings and got them settled a bit, you're going to have to do tuning maybe 2 or 3 times across the strings just to make sure that they have settled in to whatever configuration you're trying, especially with whatever humidity changes you have and whatever temperature changes you have.
Hello. Well, it's been a few days here. Hello to you too. It's been a few days here, and yeah, I was out with the flu for a bit, so I didn't finish the video on the timeline that I would like, but yes, hello. I have finally finished fixing the Lyre Harp, yes, and paying attention to River. Apparently not enough. So, as you see, here is the completed Lyre Harp with the plate that I added on the bottom. I think it turned out quite nicely. It doesn't look 100% professional. It could be a bit shinier, it could be a bit more uniform, and the engraving of the name that I made could look a bit neater, but overall I think it still matches the style of the Lyre Harp, and it doesn't take away from it. So, yes, hello. I know you want pets. I know. She only wants belly rubs. Okay, is there enough belly rubs for now? Can I talk to the people? Okay. Alright, so after I tuned the strings, I had to snip them because they're a bit too long. And when I tuned this, I had to tune it about 5 times before it stayed in tune, because the strings were stretching a little bit, so constantly going more flat. But you won't have to do it as much after the strings have stretched out a bit more. But like I said, with this particular instrument, if you look at it wrong, it will go out of tune. As I've said previously, you can maybe get about 1 session of making music before you're going to have to retune, or maybe you're going to have to retune during the session depending on how vigorous you are or how long the session goes for. But after everything has been put all together, I don't think that this has affected the tone at all, so do you like that, huh? Do you like that? Alright. So, Do you want me to play a song? So here's just a few riffs so you can hear what it sounds like. I have not edited this audio. It is straight from the microphone of the camera. I'm a bit out of practice since this has been out of commission for a while. But as you see, Huskies love it and it sounds beautiful just by itself. Like I've said, I put 2 songs together, which I will link at the end of the video, where I did a little bit of processing, but basically it is featuring the Lyre Harp, and you can let me know what you think. So overall, I really recommend Lyre Harps. They sound beautiful, look beautiful. If you see an older model that does not have any sort of brass plate at the bottom, I would recommend against getting that one. Or if you really want to get this one, I would say that eventually the strings are going to start pulling through the wood. But you could just make this brass plate by yourself. I just use cheap power tools that typically most anyone would have lying around, and if not, I spent like $20 for the electric hand drill and about $20 for the Dremel tool, and so 40 bucks worth of tools and 12 bucks for the plate. And of course, you also have to pay in giving attention to your dog or other loved animal, because otherwise they will never forgive you and constantly ask for more and more pets. But yeah, let me know if you have any questions. I'd be happy to answer them in the comments. And if you're interested, I have a whole bunch of other musical equipment and instruments I'd be happy to talk about. But yeah, I'm working on making more music. I'm working on my debut album, but I already have about 7 singles out. Feel free to check them out. Thanks for watching, and of course, please like and subscribe. Talk to you later.